just heard Alex Jones calling in from outside of the studio. As he pointed out, he's looking for ways that we can respond to the recent attacks on InfoWars. Of course, we had a report yesterday. Alex went over that in great detail. There was an article by Paul Joseph Watson about how our metrics are being manipulated. Not only just ours, but the conservative press, the libertarian press's metrics are being manipulated by Alexa, owned by Amazon, which does significant business with the government. And of course, Jeff Bezos, who owns Amazon, is very interested in politics. He paid $250 million for the Washington Post. That shows you how interested in politics he is. Not his core business, unless you're looking to get permission for doing drone delivery or anything else that you want that green lighted. It's very helpful to have the biggest paper, one of the biggest papers in the country, but certainly the biggest paper in Washington. Today we had a story, and we talked about this, and we've got a special report coming up from Alex at the bottom of the next hour about Facebook blocking us for a very benign picture. And you can see that picture if you go to our website. We also tweeted the picture out. I'm informed by Kit Daniels, came in and said that they have found a workaround for being able to post by using a different admin account. So that's something as a warning for any of you people who are doing things that you think you might get censored on Facebook for. And who knows, we would have never thought this would be something that would censor us. But as you can see in the article, we took a screenshot of when they blocked us from posting for 3 days for that admin account. And you can see what the picture is. And I'll describe it for the people who are listening on the radio. Basically, in the foreground, we have a quote from Joseph Stalin. Then there's a man there that is wearing like a ski mask over his head. I forget what they call it, just a specific term for those types of masks. And he's wearing camo. And behind him... Balaclava. Balaclava, yes, thank you. He's wearing a balaclava. He's wearing camo. You don't see any gun. You don't see any knife. You don't see any blood. There's nothing that is violent whatsoever about it. He's just standing and looking with a flag in the background. Now, that was enough for them to ban the account from posting for 3 days. And here's the quote. The easiest way to gain control of a population is to carry out acts of terror. Joseph Stalin. Or as I pointed out at the beginning of the hour, maybe an even easier way is to put in corporate censorship, because that's what we're going to get with the Trans-Pacific Partnership that is coming through. It is about far more than free trade. If it was simply about economics, it would be bad enough. And we can talk about that, and we will talk about that later in the program. If we look at what's happened with trade deficits, there's been a lot of opposition within the Democrats. There has been no opposition within the Republicans, I'm sad to say. Not even from the people who are running for president, people who should know better, Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, people who typically will stand up for the Constitution. They're very silent, or they are supportive. It appears that Rand Paul is going to support this. It looked like he was going to support it right after the election. He started talking about free trade. Very disturbing if he does. He should know better. As Alex Jones pointed out, even Barry Goldwater knew how this is going to break down decades ago. Here's a quote from Barry Goldwater. He said, let's read this quote, and let's go through this quote. The Trilateralist Commission is international, says Barry Goldwater, and is intended to be the vehicle for multinational consolidation of the commercial and banking interests by seizing control of the political government of the United States. See, it's not a trade agreement. It is a sovereignty agreement. There's politics involved in it. And Barry Goldwater goes on to say the Trilateralist Commission represents a skillful, coordinated effort to seize control and consolidate the four centers of power: political, monetary, intellectual, and ecclesiastical. So certainly you can understand the political and the monetary. When you look at the intellectual and the ecclesiastical, I would say that the way that that shows up is in the political correctness we have that seeks to censor people, to destroy both sections of the First Amendment, both free speech and freedom of religion. And certainly we have seen that. And understand that the Trilateralist Commission was set up for the same trading blocks that we currently now see. Of course, there's North America. And we've had General Petraeus say that, of course, what comes after America? Remember that about a year ago? He said, what comes after America? Well, that's easy. North America. We're 20 years into NAFTA, said General Petraeus. We understand that it's a consolidation. And, of course, we have seen that the different groups, the Council on Foreign Relations, for example, and there's all these groups, the Trilateralist Commission, the Council on Foreign Relations, all of these different groups, it's pretty much interlocking directories. There's so many of these groups. These guys can basically go to whatever meeting they choose to go to, whether it's the Bilderberg group or whether it's the CFR meeting on a particular topic, and they can catch each other up on what's going on. And we understand that this is a globalist agenda, that they are creating, in the name of free trade, in the name of trading blocks, they are creating different areas. And I started to talk about the Council on Foreign Relations. There was a special report that they did about 10 years ago, involved Ted Cruz's wife, and they were talking about how they should make one border that went around the perimeter of the three nations that were in NAFTA, Mexico, the United States, and Canada. One physical border that would be patrolled by our police state, by the U.S. police state, because, you know, we are the policemen of the world. And that's how they're going to use it. They're not going to make you safer. They're going to create a jail, essentially, for you, seal you in. But, of course, we also see that in Europe now, especially with the problems with Greece, we've had Alan Greenspan, as well as the head of the largest bond fund in the world, PIMCO, both say that Greece will probably leave, that the EU will break up unless the states cede sovereignty to the EU. So that is the direction that this is all headed. That's why they're putting these trade agreements together. That's why we should be very concerned. But just the secret nature of the trade agreement ought to be enough to stop it right there. I want to go to that right now before I go into any more of this free speech stuff. I have a lot of information about free speech because that's been on the news this week. But just understand that Mitch McConnell is fully on board with President Obama. Listen to the wonderful things that he has to say about Obama when it comes to this trade project. He said, "It's been almost an out-of-body experience," says Mitch McConnell, "but we've been working closely with the White House. We're working together to get this across the finish line. At the risk of having some of you literally faint, I want to compliment President Obama for the way he is handling the trade issue," says Republican Senate Leader Mitch McConnell. You understand that they're just two sides of the same puppet controlling both of them. And, of course, we see a lot of Democrats who are caving in on this as well. They report that a number of Democrats are saying that they're willing to vote for the legislation just over the past few days. Now there's 16 who have publicly said that they will support it. The latest two are Democrat Representatives Amy Barra of California and John Delaney of Maryland have both said that they will vote yes. And a representative from Oregon is also coming out in favor of it. So you need to get on the phone, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, you need to hold these people's feet to the fire, because we should never have a situation where we have a trade agreement that our senators are not allowed to see. They're not allowed to talk about. This is the story that was up on Drudge Report yesterday on Politico. Extreme secrecy is eroding support for Obama's trade pact, except that what's happening is that political partisan pressure by Democrat leaders who are into this every bit as much as the Republican leadership, they are turning the Democrat members towards voting for this. Now listen to what happens if you try to go in here and look at this trade agreement. They say if you want to read the details, you have to go to a classified briefing, you have to leave your staff, you have to leave your cell phone at the door. Can't take any pictures. If you're a member of Congress who wants to read the text, you've got to go into a room in the basement of the Capitol Visitor Center. You'll be handed it one section at a time. And of course, there's many different sections. There are sections about open borders. There are sections about copyright. There's sections about the internet. This is not simply a trade agreement. That's one of the reasons why the Democrats are going to fail, is because they're not focusing on the broad scope of this. There's so many different aspects. And of course, I don't expect them to talk about the bigger picture of regional consolidation being a stepping stone to a one world government being run by multinational corporations. Of course, they will talk about how the corporations are going to be elevated to the level of nation states or higher, but they won't draw that conclusion. Nevertheless, this is what you have to do. You have to get rid of all this stuff, and you're handed it one section at a time. They watch you, if you're a congressman, as you read the bill. And they force you to hand over any notes that you've made before you leave. Now, when you look at this, ask yourself, who is the real government here? Is it our congressmen who are watched like school children, who said they're giving them one section at a time, you can't take anything in, you can't take any notes out with you, you got to leave your cell phone, you got to leave your staff? Are those leaders? Are those people with any real power? I don't think so. I think the real people with power are the corporate lobbyists and the corporations that they work for who are making these rules for our congressmen. You understand now how the facade has come off of this fascist corporate state. Just read this Politico article, and you understand who has the power, who has the control, and they're going to consolidate it to the point where they own and control everything. Now, we've been talking about how Facebook can just shut down our postings because of an innocuous picture, they claim. I think there's more to it than that. Alex thinks there's more to it than that as well. I mean, look at that picture. There's no way that they could justify under the most politically correct agenda you can imagine that that would be offensive to anyone. There is no offense about that. It is purely directed at us. And let me tell you how this is going to work. They have tried this with SOPA, ACTA, PIPA, CISPA 1, CISPA 2. Now they're coming back with CISA. They took the P out, although the protection is still in. And the protection is not to protect you. The protection is there for the corporations, to protect them from turning over third-party, to protect them from civil liability when they turn over your data that they call third-party data. They also want, through these copyright assertions, okay, it works for the corporate state because they want to own everything. I mean, we talked about this before, how John Deere and General Motors are saying openly now, because of the Digital Millennium copyright